So, agnostic, atheist, Gnostic, atheist, Gnostic. What does it all mean? In this video, guys, it's going to be a Christian motovlog, and I'm going to explain. Have you ever heard, people sort of talk about this like 4-category system? And I'm going to explain that in this video. I've heard a lot of atheist YouTubers, because I've been recently getting into apologetics, and I've been thoroughly enjoying it. A lot of atheist YouTubers use this system where they say they're an agnostic atheist. And what it is basically they have 4 categories. They have the agnostic atheist, the agnostic theist, the Gnostic theist, and the agnostic atheist. The Gnostic atheist, sorry. And you think, well, what does it all mean? And not many sort of Christians I've ever heard use this, or any apologetist YouTubers use this. So, and it's a little bit interesting. I found this a bit odd. I don't know what it is. There's probably a reason why they don't. But let me give you an example. Now there's an atheist YouTuber, and he's quite popular, very famous, and I'm going to use him as an example. And he uses this system. His name's Alex O'Connor, and he has a channel called Cosmic Skeptic. Really sort of interesting, and he uses this system, and he's done a video on it as well. Now, he sort of comments on different people's videos. He's known for that. He does little response videos, and one of his videos was a response to a chap who's been an apologetist for 15 years. He's got a radio show on Premier Christian Radio, and it's called Unbelievable, where he gets a Christian and an atheist. He gets a Christian and an atheist to discuss a topic, and this guy's name's Justin Briley, and he's written a book about it, and he actually invited him on the show. And Alex has been on the show about 3 times now. He was, and I'll put a link to Cosmic Skeptic channel down below, and obviously the Unbelievable show as well. I'll stick that down below as well. And this was while he was on the show with a chap called Frank Turek, who's another Christian apologist, who was the Christian guest, and Alex was the atheist guest. And they've put this Cross-Examined, which is the YouTube channel to Frank Turek, and he's done other radio shows and stuff. While he was on the show, he explained the 4-category system, and this is what happened.
Intelligence, a discussion for another time.
Yeah.
Right. What I would say though is I like to categorize it, and of course this is again semantics. It's just my way of categorizing the world. What I would say is, if you think of 4 boxes like a table, across the top you have theism and atheism, and on the side you have Gnosticism and agnosticism. You say you're not 100% sure that there is no God, so I'd put you in the agnostic box. Then I'd put you across on the theism box because you believe there is a God, and that's where you sit. You're an agnostic theist, as far as I'm concerned. Now you can reject that label because you might have I know that the word agnostic carries weight, so you might
I
not
think maybe
like
we ought to stop talking about labels and start talking about evidence.
Absolutely.
Well,
right,
maybe.
so-
Let's move it on. It's been a fascinating discussion so far, talking about the definitions of atheism and agnostics and so on. But we should get into the meat of the subject.
Yeah, they didn't really sort of take it, really. It seems a little odd, why they didn't take it. They talked about other things, but Alex tried again when he invited Justin, the Unbelievable host, onto his show. He tried to explain it again, as I'll show now.
Say that it strikes me that someone who lacks belief in God, that all you're doing there is kind of describing a psychological state of someone, and in that sense, I think the most you can say is they're sort of agnostic. Now, but if I meet someone who's giving me reasons why they don't believe God exists, I'm kind of going to assume they actually hold a positive belief.
Really?
That God does not exist, or that it's very likely that God does not exist.
Well, I'm interested in your diagnosis of agnosticism there, because do you know that God exists?
Well, I have a I have a belief that God exists. I mean, I think it's much more likely than not.
Sure, but I mean that's a separate question. If you believe, like, do you know with certainty that God exists?
No, I don't know with certainty. In the sense of, I don't know in the way that you might ascribe one knowing that 1 + 1 = 2.
Right.
Or
So
something like that.
I could probably say to you then in that case, well, you don't know that God exists, so technically you're an agnostic.
Yeah, but I think the problem is that that puts the category of agnostic very wide. I think it's a very broad definition of agnostic. If you're saying simply having some measure of willingness to be skeptical about your belief in God or whatever makes you an agnostic. Well, in that sense, we're all agnostics about most things in life because we could be wrong.
Are you?
Okay, now just one word of warning at this point. If you're somebody who's thinking, these Christian apologetists, they're not very bright and intelligent, be warned. You don't know who you're talking to. I mean, Justin's a guy who's been to Oxford, and Frank is a guy who was a US naval officer, and he's got a master's degree at, I think it's Washington University. I'm not sure. I'm starting to be corrected on that one, but so I think they actually know what Alex is talking about. And actually, in Alex's video of Cosmic Skeptic, they actually did flesh Justin and Alex did flesh that agnostic thing out for about a good 20-30 minutes. But I kind of want to help Alex out a bit. What I'd like to do is kind of just sort of explain the four category system in a bit more detail and examine it and explore it. So yeah, I'm going to do a few video clips as well that I've made to explain it. So here's my first one. Okay guys, I decided to do this in full scale. Now this is the traditional way of looking at it, the way that Justin uses, and Frank most likely. So over here we have the atheist, somebody who doesn't believe in God at all, doesn't accept God. Over here we have the Christian, which is myself, Justin, and so forth, who believes that Jesus lives and God does exist and Jesus is who he says he is. And then you got the person in the middle called the agnostic, who can't make their mind up, just in the middle really. Okay, so the agnostic and the atheist. That's an interesting one. So let's explain that one. Okay, well the words agnostic and the word atheist comes from the Greek. I'll just get off around this corner. Okay. So the word agnostic and the word atheist, where does it come from? Well, actually Greek words. So if we take the word, let's take atheist for example. Now, it comes from the word theist, which means with God. And if you put a in front of it, because of the language at the time, atheist means without God. And the same with the word agnostic. It comes from the word gnostic, or the word gnosis, which basically means to know, somebody with knowledge. So now I'm not talking about a Christian movement in the first century. I'm actually talking about people who know about God, and obviously if you put an A in front of agnostic, yes, you've got the silent G, it makes it agnostic. Okay, for the atheist and the theist, the agnostic and the gnostic. Now what Alex does is this. Okay, right, how are we going to do this? I have to move that. I think I have to put it down here some. Fantastic. Okay, so here we have it. What he has done is he's put what many other YouTubers do, or atheists do, is they put the theist on what's called the x-axis, and the gnostic, agnostic on the y-axis, which then gives you these four different categories. So here we have the agnostic atheist, the person who doesn't know that God exists and doesn't believe that God exists. And then over here we have the agnostic theist, the person who knows God exists, doesn't know that God exists, but believes anyway. Now down here we have the Gnostic theist, the person who knows that God exists and believes God exists. And over here we have the agnostic atheist, the person who actually knows about God, knows that God exists or doesn't exist, and doesn't believe anyway. And there we have it, the four categories. Okay, so then you've got the four categories. Beautiful. Now, before you start sort of like, positioning yourself in different categories, I kind of need to sort of just understand, I'm trying to do this video not to sort of, detriment anyone. I'm actually trying to just sort of explain it to people who don't quite, just to explain things better. So I'm hoping this is useful. Now I'm going to add something that I want to explain before you go too far into the, atheist agnostic thing before you put somewhere. So I was thinking, well, how am I going to do this? So what I've decided to do is I've decided to basically get a glass, a can which consists of a food tin which goes to cover the glass, and a can of Pepsi Max. Okay, now we've got like two situations here, guys. God existing and God not existing. Okay, so the first scenario, to demonstrate that there is a God. Okay, and to do that, what I'm going to do is get the can of Pepsi Max, open it up, fill the glass with the Pepsi Max, so the glass is filled up with Pepsi Max, and then I'm going to put the cover over the top of the glass. Now that demonstrates that there is God. Okay? Brilliant. Okay, so the second scenario is that God doesn't exist, and to demonstrate that I'm going to take the cover and just place it over the glass, and well, that's basically it really. Just yeah, God doesn't exist. Okay, so let's talk about the cans here. So obviously the can covers up the glass, and the glass is, being full or empty will represent God. And the only evidence that we've got is the evidence that we can find in history and in archaeology and so forth, and science and so forth, and philosophy, if you want to use philosophy. But then you've got and that is represented by the can of Pepsi Max. If the can of Pepsi Max, the full can of Pepsi Max, represents the evidence for there being no God, okay? Whereas the empty can is represents all the evidence for there being a God, because obviously the can has been emptied and put into the glass underneath the food can, which is covering over the glass. That's the only evidence that we've got. So that kind of represents what we have. Now you see, the thing about evidence is it's not always accurate. Yeah. So we can't always rely on what we see and what we've heard. Okay, so, the only way we're going to know if God actually does or does not exist, that's the question, isn't it? So we tend to look at the evidence, and we hope that the evidence that we got is true, and we hope that it can sort of, lead us to Gnosticism. This evidence can be a problem. How can it be reliable? Yes, there's lots of evidence, and that's what the beauty of apologetics is. You're trying to sort of flesh out the reasons for why we believe. So we'll have to say evidence. Okay, let's talk about the Gnostics first, which is somewhere down here. Well, Gnostics are people who know the existence of God. The thing about being a Gnostic is, if this is the can of life, and you're not able to lift it up until you die, a Gnostic has been able to have a sneak peek whether there is a God or there isn't a God. And it could have been done by any sort of way of doing this. You could have actually had an experience, like a Road to Damascus style experience, or you've got a firm piece of evidence, which if you did, you'd want to tell the whole world that God does or doesn't exist. And then we could all become, Gnostics, and then we can make a decision. So really, I think this is probably why we use the linear system, is because there's not many Gnostics about. So let's talk about the agnostic scenario now, which is somewhere up here. Let's assume, like myself, I'm a theist, an agnostic theist, and I decide to go the route of choosing hang on, there's a slight technical hitch. I'll just explain this video. You see, one of the questions you might be asking is, look, there's so many different religions out there, and so many different varieties, it's hard to know which one to take. Okay guys, let me explain why I have chosen Christianity as opposed to any other religion, and it's a bit of akin to my own testimony really. You see, Christianity compared to any other religion is different, it's unique. Other religions, you work towards God. Within Christianity, God has worked towards you, and you'll probably find if you explore other religions are based on the works of mystics, prophets and philosophers, whereas Jesus is a man who actually, born of a virgin, performed miracles, healed the sick, died and rose again. No other religion in the world can offer that. So in the old ancient game of the high stakes Russian roulette game of which religion is true, I personally believe that Christianity is the empty chamber, the winning lottery ticket. Okay, so that's my talk on which religion. So let's suppose I took the agnostic theist route, which is somewhere over here. Okay guys, so I've taken the theist route. Okay, so what I've done is I've checked my evidence, and you can see there's no Pepsi in the can. Therefore, I can be safely assured that there's no God. It's all... I feel like an absolute prat now. Okay, so, let's suppose I was wrong. Let's suppose there was no God, and what have I lost? It's just like the clock spring has run out. I haven't lost a lot of a great deal. My main concern really is for those who are agnostic atheists, which is somewhere over here. I have a grave concern, because this is the problem that could happen. Okay, I've taken the atheist route. Okay, so there is no God. Now, how do I know this? Well, I've looked at the evidence. You see, full can of Pepsi Max. So therefore, I can be pretty sure, I can live a happy life, that there is no God. So when I come to kick the can... Ouch! Now that's going to sting. Well, more than sting, actually. I mean, I'm not trying to scare anybody into becoming a Christian here. I mean, let's face it, yes, I mean, they could have lived the sort of the theist life. And then when it comes to actually lifting the can, I find out that actually I've got the wrong religion. you know, but then that's the sort of the high stakes game that we are playing of Russian roulette. You know, we just hope that we find our empty chamber. But it's like, well, you know, and I suppose being an atheist, you're more or less sort of playing that game as well. But the stakes are, well, more higher. So, yeah, I'm not trying to sort of, as I said, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I'm trying to say, look, this is the state of play. We will never know what will come of us, you know, and we just need to really sort of think through this sort of table of four categories. I'd be very careful about how you sort of, you know, because some people take that sort of table and they chop it up in all different sort of ways, and that we shouldn't do, unlike this person here.
Versus no knowledge, and on the x-axis represents disbelief versus belief. You can say that you don't know if there's a God and therefore you don't believe in one, and that makes you an agnostic atheist. You can say that you do know that there is no God and therefore don't believe in one, and that makes you this anti-theist we were talking about. You can say that you don't know if there's a God but you believe there's a God, and that makes you a theist, or you can say that you know there is no God but you believe in God, and frankly that just makes you an idiot.
Yeah, okay, he was young, he was just trying to get a few subscribers. He's done a pretty good job actually. But really, you know, we need to respect people of different positions. If you're of one position and that's for table, we put yourself, respect other people in other positions. I hope I've actually sort of explained this in a way that's, you know, not sort of offensive to anybody, or, you know, I just want people to sort of understand where I'm coming from. That's how I feel about it. Rather than saying, oh, there's so many religions out there, which one is true, I'd be thinking, well, which religion is right? You know, and the only way you can do that is to actually investigate it. Like I've said, I mean, that's what I did. I looked at some of these different religions and found that, you know, Christianity is one that stands out for me, that I feel is right. I mean, yes, I may be wrong, but that's kind of the game that we are playing. It's probably best that I've chosen one than not one at all. So yeah, I hope this is. I hope you guys sort of enjoyed the video. Please don't be offended. I'm not out to try and offend. I'm just trying out to sort of explain it. I'll leave that one with you to think about. And I will see you guys in the next vlog. Thanks, guys.